Welcome to Theology Explained for Beginners. Our new topic is about purgatory. Before we begin, let us make a reality check. We have to realize that God is holy and we are not. Second, in heaven, nothing impure will ever enter it. Because of these two realities, we are better able to understand what is the purpose of purgatory. It will help us get to heaven and overcome these two realities. What is the purpose of purgatory then? First, to purge all unrepented sin. Second, to atone for all unexpiated sin. And third, to remove all worldliness. So, any attachment to this world, any form of impurities, any stain in our soul, it has to be cleansed, it has to be purged. Because in heaven, nothing unclean, nothing impure enters heaven. Here we see the purgatory for souls who are going to heaven. So, first of all, souls with mortal sin, they go to hell. Now, souls who have been purified before death, they go straight to heaven. But for souls who are needing purification, they come to purgatory, they are purged, they are cleansed, so that afterwards these souls are now purified and they can enter heaven. Who are those souls who do not need to go to purgatory? These are souls with no unrepented venial sins, souls who have fully paid the penalty for all their sins, and souls with no attachment to this world. Let us give three good reasons why Catholics believe in purgatory. First, because Catholics believe that God is infinitely merciful. So the first reason why Catholics believe in purgatory, because they believe that God is infinitely merciful. Let us try to understand this and take a look at this diagram. God is in heaven, God is love, God is holy. Here on earth, we are not holy and we are not conformed yet to God. And so, in our life here on earth, we have to undergo transformation so that we become conformed to God who is holy. So, this transformation must happen here on earth in our lifetime. We have to transform and become conformed to God while here on earth. But what happens if death arrives before we have finished our transformation? What happens if death arrives before we have finished our transformation? We have, for example, in this particular case, this person did not have any mortal sin, so this person will not go to hell. But the problem is this person has not yet fully finished the transformation and therefore is not yet conformed to God. What would happen to this person? Here is where God's justice and mercy comes in. In the first reason, Catholics believe that God is infinitely merciful. So, in cases like this, do you believe in God's justice and mercy after death? Yes or no? The Catholic Church says yes. In cases like this, God's justice and mercy is applied to souls who have not yet completed their transformation to holiness. According to Catechism, all who die in God's grace and friendship, but still imperfectly purified, are indeed assured of their eternal salvation. Also, according to Catechism, but after death they undergo purification, so as to achieve the holiness necessary to enter the joy of heaven. Next, the Church gives the name for this uh, uh, process where they undergo purification. The Church names it purgatory. This is the final purification of the elect. So, purgatory is just a name by the Church to the process in which these souls undergo. They are being applied, God's mercy and justice is being applied to them. And Catholics believe that God is infinitely merciful. So it's not anymore a question about purgatory because almost all of us believe that God is infinitely merciful. So it's not anymore a question whether purgatory exists, but a question of whether you believe in God's mercy. Because putting a doubt on purgatory is also putting a doubt on God's justice and mercy not being able to do to a person who is already dead. But Catholics believe that God is not limited to life here on earth. God is still working for the salvation of man, especially those who have no mortal sin, and because only of some impurities and stain that prevents them from going to heaven, God's justice and mercy will help them, will be applied to them, and they will be able to enter heaven. So here in purgatory, God's justice and mercy is applied to them. And we should not put a limit to the justice and mercy of God. We should believe in power of God. Now, another question, is there forgiveness after death? Yes. Here in Matthew 12, verse 31 to 32, when Jesus said, describes of a sin that is not forgiven, which he points out as sin against the Holy Spirit, sins against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven. Jesus tells us that it will not be forgiven in this age and in the age to come. Now, this age to come that is mentioned here, scholars believe this pertains to the next life. So, what is being implied here? What is being implied? This text implies to us that there are sins that are not forgiven in the next life, and that would be the sin against the Holy Spirit. But there are also sins that will be forgiven in the next life. That is what is being implied here. Sins that cannot be forgiven either in this age or in the age to come or in the next life. So sins can also be forgiven in the next life. those that are not forgiven are those sins against the Holy Spirit. Now, reasons why Catholics believe in purgatory. Let's go for the second reason. The second reason is because the church is the pillar of truth. And this is written in the Bible that the church is the pillar of truth. In 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 15, the Bible calls the church as the pillar and the foundation of truth. That is why we should believe in the church, because this is where we find the truth, in the church. In Ephesians chapter 3 verse 10, here, according to Paul, it is through the church that the manifold wisdom of God shall be made known to the rulers, to the authorities, and even to the heavenly realms. So it is in the part of God that it is through the church that His wisdom should be made known. So there is no reason that we should doubt the church. We should trust in the church because the Bible itself tells us to trust the church, because the church is the pillar of truth. And in the plan of God here in Ephesians, we can see that it is through the church that we should that the manifold wisdom of God should be made known. Now, let's ask another question. Do you believe that Jesus has two natures, divine and human? Do you believe in the Holy Trinity? Do you believe in all the books of the New Testament, the 27 books of the New Testament? If you believe in all these three, it is the church. It is the church who made the doctrine about these three. The church who is the pillar of truth. Jesus has two natures, divine and human. This has been clarified by the church in the Council of Chalcedon and in the Council of Constantinople. This is in the historical data. And now we believe in this because of the clarification made by the church during this time in these two councils. In the Holy Trinity, all Christians believe in the Holy Trinity. But the Holy Trinity, the word Holy Trinity, or the explanation of the Holy Trinity, was clarified only by the Lateran Council and the Council of Florence. And now, because of these two councils, the clarification that they made, we now, all Christians believe in the Holy Trinity. Now, this council did not invent the Holy Trinity. What happened is that there was some confusion, heresy during this time, and so the church had to clarify the doctrine of the Trinity. And it happened here in these two councils. And now we believe in the Holy Trinity. How about in the books of the New Testament, the 27 books of the New Testament? So the books of the New Testament were only approved in the 4th century by the Council of Carthage. Before this, we didn't have any New Testament compiled. It was the church who compiled these 27 books into the New Testament. So it was the church who declared that these 27 books are inspired by God. And now all Christians believe in these 27 books. So thanks to the clarification of the Council of Carthage, we now have the New Testament. So these three, the two natures of Jesus, the Holy Trinity, and the 27 books, the list of 27 books, They all came from the church. It was the church who clarified them, who, who made them known. And now uh, we believe in all of them. So there's no reason for us to doubt the church. So when the church teaches us about purgatory, we should not doubt the church because the church is the pillar of truth. Purgatory was clarified by the Council of Florence and the Council of Trent, just like what happened to the three mentioned above. Now, the Bible does not say that you have to find everything you need. So it means that you can't use the argument that it is not in the Bible, because doing so, then you have to deny the belief that the Holy Trinity exists, or you have to deny the two natures of Jesus, and you have to deny the list of the New Testament books. If you use the argument that the purgatory is not in the Bible, you cannot use that argument, because doing so you have to deny also the Trinity, the two natures of Jesus, and the 27 books of the Bible. Now let's go to the third reason why Catholics believe in purgatory. Because we have passages in the Bible that points to purgatory. Yes, we do not have the word purgatory, but there are passages in the Bible that clearly points to the existence of purgatory. And so let's go to these three passages where it is pointed allegorically to the existence of purgatory. So these three passages are 1 Corinthians, and then Malachi, and then Zechariah. Okay, in 1 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 13 to 15, we see here that good works are rewarded and the bad works are suffer loss. They suffer loss. So three things are pointed out in this passage. Number one, some are going to heaven, but only through fire. Number two, this fire burns away works and causes suffering. Number three, only evil works get burned away and good works get rewarded. So, Catholics just name this purgatory. The next passage is from Malachi chapter 3 verse 2 to 3. Here, there are three things that being pointed out here. There is a fire at the coming of the Lord. Second, it purifies the good people. Number three, when the good people get out of the fire, they are better than when they went in. Also, in Malachi, there we can also take note of three other things. Only their evil works are punished. Second, we're not talking about hell here. Number three, there is a fire that isn't hell at the coming of the Lord, where good people are purified. So, Catholics name this purgatory. The one being pointed here allegorically is purgatory. The last passage is from Zechariah chapter 13 verse 8 to 9. We shall take note of three things. Number one, some people in this passage go to hell. Number two, some people in it are going to heaven. Number three, but first they go through fire and are purified. So Catholics just name this purgatory. So purgatory is just a name for what they see here in the Bible. What they see allegorically is being pointed out in this passage. There are other passages in the Old Testament, like praying for the dead. In the Old Testament, we have the story of Judas Maccabeus. In 2 Maccabees chapter 12, verse 40 to 44, chapter 12. So here, Judas, the leader of the Jews in revolt, so when he found out that his fallen soldiers, his warriors who died in the battle, had forbidden amulets with them in their bodies, so he asked for prayers for these dead soldiers. So what do we see here in 2 Maccabees chapter 12 verse 40 to 44? We see here the Jewish belief in the Old Testament of praying for the dead. Okay, so that ends my topic of purgatory. If you want to learn more about other topics, please visit our YouTube channel, Theology Explained for Beginners. Thank you very much.